We're here with BLEAV for the first episode. And man, he's back. I've been saying this in the comment section in the chat for a while that he was going to be here. Yeah. But I didn't tell him what for. This is for a special occasion. The first episode of BLEAV. It's like we got to come on with a fire guest. Not even a guest. This is the co-host. This is Rad. Rad, how you doing, Rad?
I'm good, Dose, man. It's been a minute. It has been a minute. I'm excited to be back. You shot me the text. You said, hey, you want to do this co-host with me of doing like a podcast / YouTube thing? And you know I'm all for it. We always have a good time, and we talking Detroit Lions football. So, I mean, that's always going to be an amazing time.
To talk about the Tampa Bay game first, revisit that one a little bit, lay out kind of what from that game, because I think some of the good things carried over from the LA Rams games. We can say, okay, this needs to be better going forward, or these are things that we can take with us going forward. To dive right into it, this Tampa Bay game, Lions lose this game 2016. Rad, I don't know about you, man. I didn't even realize that we had about 460 yards to their about 220 yards until the chat was like, yo, we out everything this team. You know, the third down conversion rate, the total yards. It was incredible. The Lions outplayed them statistically everywhere, and they ended up losing this football game. And here's the weird thing for me is that so much of this whole Dan Campbell era over the last, really the 2 years, I mean, we've been great. It's been just finding ways to win has been the story. Week 1 was the story, finding a way to win. And it was like, oh, we got that bad taste out of our mouth after that NFC championship, whatever that was. But then all of a sudden there was this one, man. And this was so weird because we kept having opportunities. The defense kept putting us out there. And you're just saying at some point we're going to break through because this is what we do. It can be ugly, but we're going to find a way. And it just never happened in this game. 1 touchdown on 7 red zone trips in this game. So I'll start it off with you first. And you can give me good, you can give me a bad. But what was one key takeaway that you had from this game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers, good or bad, that could also influence the Lions potentially going forward?
They always end on a good note. I'm going to start with the bad. I think the bad is we pass the ball too much. Jared Goff shouldn't be throwing the football 55 times. I'm just being real with you. I know this is your guy. I'm a fan of Jared Goff, but I'm not like a super fan, but I like Jared Goff. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't want to use the word game manager because, you know, that puts a bad like taste in people's mouth, but he shouldn't be throwing the ball 50 times. Jared Goff should be throwing the ball anywhere from 20 to 30 times. We are a run-first team and play good defense. I feel like we're playing pretty good defense to start the year, but we need to feed Montgomery and feed Gibbs. Montgomery had 11 carries. Come on, man. He needs to be anywhere from 18 to 25 every game. Gibbs needs to be anywhere from 12 to 18 carries a game, and then add in receptions and things like that. But Jared Goff throwing the ball 55 times, that's not who we were. That's not what we was last year getting to the NFC Championship. We didn't have Goff throwing the ball 50 times. We ran first. Kind of like how we closed out the week 1 game against the Rams. That was smash mouth football. Punch you in the mouth, push you off the ball, run and grind over there in the overtime. That was beautiful. I almost shed a tear watching that overtime last week because we punched them in the mouth, and that's what we should have came out and did to Tampa Bay. Vita Vea goes out, so you lost the big dog in the middle. Why aren't we just punching them in the mouth? They had so many injuries along that defense. We should have just continued to punch them in the mouth. It's obviously Ben Johnson, play calling. He's calling the plays. I don't know if it has anything to do with his contract Jared Goff received to where they feel like you making this amount of money, so you got to show it with your arm. It's like he's not that guy. Let's just keep him comfortable, keep the turnovers down, and let's run the football. So that's the bad, is that we pass the ball too much. He has 1 or 2 bad games a year. So hopefully that was his one. Let's get it out early and let's move forward. But we got to cut those passing attempts down to no more than 35. 55 is way too much. Would you agree?
I absolutely agree. Well, here's why I was laughing. Here's why I was chuckling. Because I knew this was, but and here's the thing. I want to say this, but I want to make it clear, like, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm not saying this is like he should throw it 55 times. I completely agree with you. And you know what? So we're facing Arizona this weekend, and going back and looking at 2021, and I just remembered that stat line being like amazing. And I was like, man, I remember how efficient we were. And I believe Jared Goff in that game was like 22 of 27. Like that is perfection right there. So I'm with you. Like that's what I wanted to look like too, just like you do. My one, it's not a pushback, but my one way to kind of explain away why what happened, he basically brought up that same thing that you just brought up, which is why are the Lions running so much? Are they forgetting about the run game? And I think my best way to explain it is it's what we did last year against Tampa too. I don't think this is a Lions sting. Like, I don't think it's going to be to what you're saying. Thankfully, every week the Lions are feeling like they have to throw the ball 50 times. I hope not. That would be a problem. Because they're just, like you said, we're not built like that. You can't invest in the old line of running backs and then throw the ball every play. We didn't draft a receiver. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But at that same time, I just go back to how we played Tampa last year. I'm not saying it was right. Okay, I think there were things that we should have done differently in that game. But if you do look back at both games we played Tampa, we threw it over 40 times in both those games. Now, didn't get to 55, and I think some of that, just because of how it ended. Like, if we were up in that game, he probably would have been around 45 instead of having to throw the last two possessions every play. But I just feel like Ben Johnson carried over the same game plan that he took from last year, which is like, yo, we're going to throw on early downs against this Tampa team. Because as you know, like I can remember preparing for it last year, all the creativity that Tampa Bay has, you don't know who's blitzing on the play, you don't know what coverage are going, and they have all these moving pieces. Todd Bowles does an excellent job. He blitzes at a ridiculous amount. So it was almost like the Lions last year wanted to simplify it and try to throw on early downs. And that was like their strategy. Now, when Vita Vea went down, that was the big thing for me. I was like, hey, I understand running the ball, but it was also the way we ran the ball, which I didn't agree with. Like, I would have gotten much more downhill. Like, you came in, everything was outside. It's like, hey, once you went down, let's get downhill. Let's get downhill if we're going to try to run the ball.
Right.
But that's my only way to really explain this one away. I don't think this will be a continuing issue that we're like, oh, we're not running the ball enough. Do you think it'll be that way? Because I think that was just simply a Tampa Bay specific thing.
No, I don't think it's going to be that way. I think everybody's going to self-assess themselves and get back to the basics, knowing we got to improve on the play calling and having Goff throw the ball anywhere from 20 to 30 times a game. I think we need to clean up on the penalties on both sides of the ball. We're going to start with
That's
number 0, our rookie, Terrion. Now, he's getting way too many pass interference calls. Are some of them a little ticky-tacky? Yeah, but at the end of the day, you're still getting that penalty called on you. I think we need to address that. I knew this was going to hunt us right before halftime. The too many men on field, kicking the field goal. The field goal running on, and then Goff saying, I knew that was going to haunt us. I knew it. I mean, when you leave points off the board, it's always going to haunt you. And I could just tell the flow of this game, this was going to be a close game because Tampa's no bums. So they're an NFC South team and things like that. But Tampa Bay is starting off hot. I think Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. He's my fantasy football quarterback. You know how I feel about Mike Evans, one of my favorite wide receivers in the NFL, future Hall of Famer. Chris Godwin is balling at a high level. So I knew that not getting that 3 points was going to hunt us. And as you can see, it did down the line, as opposed to us kicking a field goal, a game-winning field goal at the end there. We're going in trying to drive and get a touchdown. So I think we just need to clean a few things up, get back to our old selves, ground and pound football. And I think we're going to still have a successful season. I truly do.
What you said, Tampa Bay is like Tampa Bay. If you looked at the moves that they made this offseason, they didn't really like bring in new big pieces. There wasn't a lot of changes on their team. It was like everybody's back, and then everybody we added to this like just kind of fits in perfectly. Like the biggest one was Jalen McMillan, and he's out there and he's super impactful for them. He was like a 3rd round pick, I think, out of Washington, 3rd or 4th round, and he just fit in perfectly to that offense. That team is just too well oiled to what you're saying to leave points out there. And the way that I look at it very similarly is this. You had the bad interception, which was another 3 points that you left on the field potentially. And it's like, if you're not going to be aggressive enough to say, hey, it's 3rd and goal from the 3, we're going to throw it and then we're going to kick a field goal. So you came out with the mindset, we're going to take the points. It's like, bro, you better not leave points out there then, because you're not making those up. It's not like we're going for it another time and like, oh, we got it on 4th down. It's okay. We basically got the 3 points back. You didn't ever gave yourself really an opportunity to make those points back up because you were taking the points. So I'm with you. The field goal and then leaving another one out there because of the interception. Yeah, we didn't come away with the points. We should have won this football game at very minimum by just not having too many guys on the field. That alone.
With the good.
I like it. Let's do that.
We're getting after the quarterback. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson had a stupendous game. Stupendous. Yeah, he was going against a backup offensive tackle, but hey, you just got to beat the man that's in front of you. Hey, that's the guy that lined up, and he beat him as he's supposed to. Because he could have easily went out there and got no sacks, like some of our old defensive ends of the past when they going up against backup tackles. No, Aiden Hutchinson whooped that boy. So I think getting pressure after the quarterback is huge. I can tell that we've improved on that. The secondary is getting better. I can see that our defense, they look a lot better than last year. And that's key. That's what we wanted to do. We went out via free agency, trade, and draft. We wanted to see improvement in defense. And I think I've seen that. Run game is still pretty good. I think Gibbs had close to, I think he was averaging over 6 yards a carry. So that's a good win. Montgomery was a little sluggish, but I think Montgomery's a back that you need to give him 20 carries, not 10 or 11 carries.
Can I ask you something on that?
Yeah, you can.
So this is something that I wasn't a concern of mine, but it was brought up to me. So I'm just going to see if you had an opinion on it. What you just said, Montgomery basically needs to get the rep. Like, it's almost like he needs to get carries to kind of find that flow. Do you feel like there's an issue with them rotating backs every series? Do you think that's a problem?
I think it needs to be 2-1. Like, I think Montgomery needs to go 2 series, then Gibbs go a series. And then you kind of you develop whoever has the hot hand of the game. Obviously, people are coming in personnel-wise on formations and what plays are being called. You want Gibbs in or Montgomery in on certain plays, but I feel like you need to get Montgomery going. So, like, the first 2-3 drives, I'm probably going to run Montgomery. I'd wiggle Gibbs in on certain plays and things like that. Montgomery doesn't have to take all the carries of that drive, but I think he needs to handle the majority of those carries at the beginning of the game. And then you sprinkle in some Gibbs, a change of pace back, get him some trick plays and things like that. I think you need to get David Montgomery going. Gibbs is one of those explosive backs. He can take it's supposed to be a 2-3 yard gain to a 50-yard gain. Montgomery needs to plug, tire you down, punch you in the mouth, bruise you, and then come that second half. Now Montgomery's popping those 3-yard gainers now are turning into 8 to 12 because we know his break tackle ratio is just stupendous. So I think Montgomery does need to they need to get him in rhythm. That's who I would get in rhythm first. Once Montgomery has showed that he's in the game flow, then I'm going to sprinkle in Gibbs. I think he can take more of a bruising and beating. I want to get him going more. I think he always needs a minimum of 18 carries a game, always.
See, I'm glad I asked that because we're going to revisit this a little bit later because I got another point to bring up about Montgomery. But on top of what you said, first off, shout out to Sione Baki. He's out there, man. He's getting snaps. That dude's going to cook at some point, man. He's going to do some work. It's just, it's ticking.
It's minor, but he's.
I may have said that he could be, better than Christian McCaffrey. It's possible. This probably isn't the best way to start off the BLEAV podcast, but here we are. All right, let's just let everybody know where we stand. That's what's important, right?
Stand?
Where I stand. Let everybody know where I stand. Episode 1. Let's get that clear. This dude's about to be crazy. Let's flip it around though, because you were talking about the defense. One question for you. I'll save it though. To add on to what you said about Hutchinson and how good he's been playing. So I just want to get some numbers here to put some context to how good he is for anybody that's wondering how good he's been playing. So he got 6 sacks according to PFF, which is incredible through 2 games. He's got 6 sacks. Through 2 games. 4.5 over 2 games.
Over
2 games, he got 6.
Okay.
He's got 17 total pressures. But watch this, right? 42.3% pass rush win rate is what they had him at after 2 weeks. That led the NFL. Second place, 28.6%. And they had it with Josh Uche. Now, obviously, now that he just played a game. So it was a 15% difference between first place and second place, basically, for Aiden Hutchinson in terms of pass rush win rate. That's the kind of level he's on right now. And the crazy thing about that is after 2 weeks, now Davenport only played 1 game. But again, more belief here because Davenport's about to play this weekend. Davenport was 5th in pass rush win rate in the NFL after his 1 game. Now, again, less reps, less sample size. And like you said with Aiden Hutchinson, he's playing against some backups here and there. But that gives you a taste of how crazy this actually could be. You got a guy at 5 and a guy at 1 by far. Hutchinson's on his way to potentially winning Defensive Player of the Year this year. And it's crazy, though, because, to be honest, I think he's the leader right now. He's definitely the leader right now, especially if this defense keeps doing what it's doing, because it's not like we're getting gashed against the run. We're an incredible run defense. We've been now for the last 2 years. And one of my big takeaways from that last game was, look, Tampa Bay, they didn't run the ball well last year. But still into this game, to go out there with DJ Reader and basically shut it down, they had I think between their 2 starting running backs, 17 carries for 40 yards. That's incredible. That's something that we've now been able to hang our hat on for a while. Throw DJ Reader into that mix. They have so much matchup potential now, it feels like. It doesn't feel like a team can, hey, we're going to work downhill against them. That could be a little problem because Lima's a little bit smaller now. There is no great matchup for teams, I think, when you're running the football. It's kind of like the flip side of why I feel like our run game is so difficult, because we can kind of do anything we want to schematically. It's the flip side on the opposite side of the ball. Teams don't really have a great strategy, I think, to attack us rushing the football. So when you tie that along with what Hutchinson is now doing, he's actually gotten better year to year, especially as a pass rusher. Year 1, and this is my question for you, Red. Just ask some questions. It's episode 1. Is Aiden Hutchinson the best pass rusher on the Lions? I just want to get a. I'm just curious.
Okay. All right. We're going back a
Yeah.
couple of years now. Okay.
I'm just asking a question. It had nothing to do with that. I'm just asking
I'm
the
gonna.
question.
You know what? I'm gonna answer. I was asked a question. I will answer the question. And the answer is yes. Yes, Aiden Hutchinson is the best pass rusher on our Detroit Lions football team. Yes, I would agree. I would say that.
This is a good problem to have. We're making each other better. That's it. I was curious. It had nothing to do with anything. I was just asking a question. Because people wanted to know. I had a lot of people like, yo, is Hutchinson the best pass rusher? And I was like, shoot, I'll ask Ram when he comes on here. That's why I asked that.
Right.
Was there any... I would say, and I want to add like one more to this, like the things I didn't like kind of here, because to what you said with defense, and this is the way that I put it, and I'm going to put it here as well. I'm going to say it the same way over here. Get your thoughts on this. If you told me through 2 weeks, man, I'd walk out of the 2 weeks with like, yo, this offense got to get it together, or the defense has to get together. I'd much rather that be the offense, just because I know what I've seen over the last few years. I know what they can get to. It was like after week 1, it was weird because everything that we all know as Lions fans, which is St. Brown's going to be St. Brown, those kind of things, those things weren't really there. So it was like strange to people because St. Brown wasn't St. Brown week 1. And then week 2, he kind of came back to life. And then we just didn't score in the red zone, which typically have been really awesome in the red zone. But if you ask me which side of the ball I'd rather have questions about, it would be that side of the ball, because look, defensively, man, that's the spot we have questions. Like you said, we have all these new additions and all of them are already showing up. Davenport 5th in pressure rate, right? Carlton Davis looks like a number 1 to me. Look, the big point for me here is that with all of these veteran defensive players that you brought in, not the rookies will take their time to develop. As you mentioned, Terran Arnold, the defensive pass interferences, I think some of them were ticky-tack, especially when you consider the one that we didn't get. That being said, though, I still like the ball skills. I still like some of the reps from Terran Arnold. There's flashes in there. I want to see some of the run defense just be a little bit more high alert in some of those spots. That's a player that I think, awareness-wise, it's going to take some time for him to kind of settle in. That being said, there's still a lot of good flashes, even on the defensive pass interference play. I did still like the way that he played that cover 3 assignment to get over top and not allow himself to get beat over top, but just allow an easy touchdown. I guess it was still better than just giving up the touchdown because we ended up holding them to a field goal in that spot. It's really the veterans that have all stepped in that you've added this offseason, that all of them, I think you could say, have at very least played an adequate plus level to this point. And those 4 key contributors, starting with Carlton Davis, who I really like Carlton. Yes, he hasn't been perfect in coverage. I think he's allowed a 120 pass rating. He's been excellent against run. Everything you could hope for there, willing to stick his nose in, being a big-time open field tackler. He's been massive in those spots, playing with high awareness. But then in coverage, again, while it hasn't been perfect, there's been times we saw him slip against Mike Evans last week. You are seeing a lot of the positives, which are the ball skills in terms of the length at the catch point. We're not seeing him take away the football, head dropped interception.
So while it'll always be a battle against some of the true number 1 receivers, when he's matched up against guys that aren't number 1 receivers, he's looked really good. Like, for example, whenever he matched up with Jalen McMillan last week, he looked awesome in coverage. He's taken those guys away seemingly.
Disrupting the catch point, which is something that we've seriously lacked in the back end. That's been one of the biggest things that we've lacked in the back end for this team, is passes defended out of the cornerback room. We've allowed low completion percentages over the last few years with Aaron Glenn. We've come up with interceptions mainly from the safety position, but one thing that we've really lacked are passes defended. And now with a guy like Carlton Davis and hopefully eventually Terran Arnold, you have guys that have the ball skills to get their hands on the football. And I think that Carlton's brought that. So, while Carlton hasn't been perfect, there's definitely been enough good in there for me where this has been a real positive so far to this point for me with Carlton Davis. Amik Robertson, he's been very solid in the slot, which we weren't sure if he was going to play inside or outside. For him to step into the inside role, again, not going to say it's been perfect, but he really hasn't been targeted all that much. 2 targets, 5 receptions, 67.9 pass rating. He's been fine against the run. They just haven't went his way a lot, especially in man coverage. I really like what I've seen, his ability to play leverage. He's not the most fluid athlete, but he definitely has the ability to stick with guys and be physical. You see that a ton. Same thing with Carlton. And I love the fact that all of these cornerbacks are willing to be physical. It's not just that the Lions are playing a lot of man like they typically do with Aaron Glenn. It's that it's a lot of press man coverage. It disrupts timing. And the Lions have a plethora of cornerbacks that all play that same style. Rakestraw, when he's healthy, will play that same style. Wants to get physical, wants to get up on his receiver. Kendall Vildor plays that exact same style. And then on the defensive line, as mentioned, Marcus Davenport, he had a sack, 6 pressures in his first game. It's only been 1 game, right? We want to see more. He'll be back this week. And then, of course, DJ Reader, who made probably more of an impact against the run, but he made all of the plays that you really didn't notice in that last game, right? I think he has more upside as a pass rusher than what we've seen so far, but it was all of the playing behind the line of scrimmage consistently in that game against Tampa Bay. Now, we'll see how that goes throughout the season, but just living behind the line of scrimmage, it also opens up because he can play that zero tech role, because he can 2-gap, that we can, kick our defensive linemen to 4-eye techniques and 4 techniques, right? We can kick those guys out because he can handle a true nose tackle responsibility. And he showed up against the run as expected immediately as soon as he stepped in off of his injury. And if you even look at some of the flash plays that he got disruptive against the pass, I mean, look at the play that we had on the sack where Tampa Bay is forced to kick the field goal. It's a sack fumble by Hutchinson. That was DJ Reader that set it up. He was the guy that got in the backfield and disrupted the play and spilled him into Aiden Hutchinson. So these veterans have at very least played to an adequate level of expected, in my opinion, or better in a very small sample size to this point, which has been so massive for these free agent signings. Now, we'll see how this progresses, but I think it's been in a pretty good spot to this point, and especially with a guy like Meek playing in the slot, you have guys like Brian Branch going to safety, which I've absolutely loved because the flexibility is absolutely endless. That is one of the key things that going forward I think is going to pay massive dividends. We're already seeing that. The interception that he had against Tampa, playing that robber role, just lurking underneath, comes up with the interception. We're still getting a big run game impact from him, but it's really just a coverage flexibility. We can step him down on the receiver with no concerns. It also, to me, allows a guy like Kirby Joseph to so naturally fit into his free safety role. It's like, hey, you be the single high safety, you be the rangy safety that's already gotten this interception this year, and Brian Branch will be the guy that can roll down and play man coverage. And he's so comfortable in those spots, and still, a lot of those plays where he's in man coverage, he looks like the best cover corner. He looks like our best cover corner, so he hasn't lost any of that skill. He's just now in a different role, which I think expands the opportunities for Brian Branch. He never really is going to leave the field. I think that's what's been so impressive about this defense so far.
The Brian Branch, you know I love Brian Branch, okay? That's one of my favorite players on the Lions. He's been playing very well. He's also been missing some tackles too, though. I'm
calling him out. Okay.
It's just because is it because he's too far away from the line of scrimmage at this point that he's missing more open field tackles? I think he's a top tier. Look at week 1 and week 2, he did miss a couple tackles. From college, he had the lowest missed tackle rate. Rookie season, he wasn't missing I don't know if he missed that many tackles, but I just felt like he's missed a few of the first couple of weeks.
I think that's a good, not a bad question to bring up though, and it's because the bar set so high for him. Like
that it is. You're right.
Because you're nitpicking because anybody else you kind of forget about that, but you remember because it's Branch and he's so good, and now he's playing everywhere. And I remember thinking this. I think it was after the Tampa game, like, yo, Brian Branch, like if it wasn't for Hutchinson doing like astronomical things right now, he's the best player on the team, I feel like, again. Like right now he looks like the best player on the team. He's that good. It's crazy.
Very high level too.
Yes, he is. Yeah, a lot of Malcolm. Malcolm's been getting mixed in for sure.
You noticed that? I noticed
yes,
that.
A lot of third down usage.
The defense looks pretty solid. I'm pleased so far. Even though we took an L, I'm pleased so far with our defense.
It's been really cool to see the way the Lions have really embraced kind of the growth of that linebacker position as a whole. Like Jack Campbell, I think we're seeing it early. The run defense looks really good from Jack Campbell. For me, it stood out in the last 2 weeks that I've watched him. Alex Anzalone, of course, playing at a very high level, but now we're seeing Barnes really embracing kind of that Sam backer role, made some crucial plays against Tampa Bay, got us back on the field, nearly came up with an interception because he was disciplined, playing flat to the line of scrimmage. And this is a game where he could be thrown into the mix a ton against Arizona, so we're going to see a lot in that game. But in years prior, like last season, early in the year, it was very messy. And I think through the first 2 weeks, he's looked very sound in a lot of different responsibilities. I think he's even added a little bit more to what he's capable of as a pass rusher. Melk Rodriguez, like you mentioned, I love the idea of him being out there on third downs, finding that little role for him as a guy that can really change directions well. He's always seemingly been really good at getting zone coverage depth, kind of finding zone holes. And right now he's doing kind of that little rat player for the Lions underneath in a lot of man coverage assignments where he can be the guy that kind of just steps in front and drags and crossers and disrupts timing. It's been cool to see them just find little different roles and really embrace that. But for me, the last thing that I want to say here is to the offensive side of the ball. And I know a lot of knocks have been thrown towards Ben Johnson, but I do think there's a couple of things, man, that really stood out for me last week in a positive way because we want to end on a good note, is the tweaks and adjustments that we still saw Ben make. Like, I still walked out of that game feeling like Jared Goff was being honest, that he felt like he was in a pretty good groove. And yeah, we had a bad interception when he had the pressure and he took the hit, and he wasn't perfect all day, missed a couple throws, also laid some beautiful throws that we didn't just come up with. However, that being said, Ben Johnson, while there can be knocks and there's things, I still want to see more inside zone, maybe more duos, just something downhill, a little more of those wham and trap plays that we had some success with. Did like some of the small tweaks we saw in the second half. That guy is always just finding new answers as the game goes on. It gives me so much faith going forward, where even in a game like that where we lose, to come out in the second half after one of your ugliest plays of the first half, right? Defense inverts coverage. They go to that inverted Tampa 2 look. Goff nearly throws an interception, throwing it to St. Brown with the pressure on the play. Kind of just forced it to St. Brown. Cornerback sitting underneath it, nearly picks it off. We're like, that was a mess. We had 2 routes on the play. We checked to that, and that was a mess. Then you go out there immediately in the second half, the first play of the second half, you have an answer for that inverted Tampa 2 look on a play-action play with the stutter step by JMO on the little double move, and then St. Brown crossing the field, and you get the play-action shot wide open. Immediately you start with the chunk. And then the other thing that caught my eye in the second half was the little counter pull plays. We did it twice. They were a disaster, but clearly the Lions wanted to get to it, but off the backside, the safeties, it was Jordan White at TFL, and his little adjustment to say, you know what, let's stack up the backside. He had 3 guys in line to the backside of his counter pull play. They were able to hit their blocks with their receivers. They were able to hold off on the backside with Sam Laporta, and they picked up about 6 yards of Montgomery. It's those little things that Ben Johnson does that he's able to tweak, and whoever's a part of that staff, they're doing those jobs to help make those adjustments. Those little things give me so much optimism going forward, that continue to find answers through games. It is awesome to see an offensive coordinator that just has that kind of awareness where it's like, hey, we can tweak these things and find answers as the game goes on. And it stunk because the second half, the touchdown drive was absolutely beautiful, and it was simply just not converting in the red zone. And to me, the biggest issue with that was a lot of times wide receiver blocking, just not being assignment sound. Screen plays were blown up. Give credit to Tampa Bay. They were playing incredibly well. Linebackers were making tackles. They played at a super high level. Their defensive line, Joe Tryon, Shoyinka, those guys getting out in the flats, getting out on screens, those taking those away. And then the Lions offensive line, missed blocks at the second level, missed blocks on screens, wide receiver, Tim Patrick gets a one-on-one with the cornerback, picks up 2 yards. Just not having positive plays really once we got inside the 30-yard line. And a lot of times to me, it was more missed assignments than necessarily play call, because we had a lot of our big run plays on the same type of play calls. We just missed assignments when we got downhill. You think about the little pitch play that we did with Jared Goff where it looked like an option. You get a play like that, and Jamison Williams, confusion blocking, leaves this guy, and it's an easy tackle for loss. I can't necessarily put that on a play call. You didn't block anybody, right? And then we even get the little creativity from Ben Johnson in the first half where you got the read option of Goff. Like, who does that? But he takes off and picks up the first down. I'm sitting there watching it live like, I wonder what the Lions are going to do. They don't got any timeouts. And here comes Ben Johnson with a quarterback run. It almost looked like a pure design. That's the kind of thing that gives me optimism about Ben Johnson. I'm personally not concerned about Ben Johnson going forward with this offense. I don't think that it's a big overreaction which wants to be made by like the national media. Maybe didn't watch the game or doesn't understand our past with Tampa Bay. I think that was a Tampa Bay specific thing, but I still love me some Ben Johnson, and I love what Aaron Glenn is doing, because right now Aaron Glenn, you know what he wants to get to, and he has the personnel to kind of back that up.